Tom Sharpe and Anoushka Freeman were not the favorites to win DW this year. They had incredibly tough competition from top-tier men's crews, but Anoushka and Tom pulled it off, becoming the third mixed crew to win DW overall.
So for me, it was a very long game. We did a good K2 in sort of November 2021. We went from the Elmridge 10 at 10s. Didn't think much of it. It was a fun day out. And then at the post-DW party in 2023, I realised that Tom had won the men's, he'd won the K1, and he probably ought to win the mixed. So I kind of planted that seed and sort of banged that drum for quite a few months. Eventually in December he took me out for a couple more auditions, including his sort of bread and butter, a Hampton Court in the dark in high flow, and then we had a meeting the next morning and sort of said, I think we should do this because I think we could win and we might get the record, and I sort of nodded and went along. And that was...
Yeah, so after the 2023 race, I knew I wanted to come back and do it again, but I was thinking I might try and do it in a different way, going back into a men's crew with that expectation and everything that comes with that didn't appeal immediately. So I thought I'd look for a different category to do it in, and then Nishi suggested the mix, and I was like, okay, I think that could work. And we had a couple of paddles and it went well. So I thought, well, Nishi's got good form from last year. Let's give it a go.
Anoushka and Tom were training 100 kilometers a week, but they were still finishing 7 or 8 minutes behind the top two men's crews racing against them at the Waterside Series, who would also be their competition at DW.
How was your race? Tell us from the beginning.
From the beginning, so we set off later than we originally planned, with the flow that had increased for a few days before. We knew it was going to be fast, so it was quite late in the afternoon on Easter Saturday, and we just about got the pound bit done in the light, and then it got dark. And the early part was actually challenging. We had a headwind, there was trees and branches and so on in the canal, and it was hard to maintain the pace that we set as our plan. We could have pushed on and done that, but it didn't seem the right thing to be doing. So we were actually behind for a little while. So at Pusey we were sort of, I think, 4 minutes behind our plan. We were 4th overall, which we weren't told about, but I knew we were behind. I didn't realise the position, but it didn't matter because there were good reasons why we should have been behind. And then, when the portages started, the darkness came, we had our support crew on the bikes, which made a massive difference, being able to see where we were going, like portaging in the daylight really. And from there on, things started to get back on track really. And then by the time we got to Newbury, where we changed, then the whole deficit that we had at Pusey was sort of back to the square. So it was quite an exciting race by all accounts to watch. So when we got to Newbury, it was all even. And from Newbury, we started getting the bits of flow on the canal and where the rivers join. And between Newbury and Aldermaston, I first started getting those bits of flow, thinking actually this is going quite nice now. And again, the times were heading in the right direction. I think by Aldermaston we were 2 minutes ahead, without really making a deliberate effort to do that, to catch up. We were sticking to our plan, and the others perhaps had gone out too hard and were sort of coming back to us. After Aldermaston, as you get towards where the river comes in and out quite a bit, we got some really nice bits of strong flow, and made sure we eased right off there, because we were faster than our plan. Well, after Newbury really, but particularly after Aldermaston. And I knew if that bit was going to be flowing a lot, then the river was going to be even bigger. I wanted to make sure that we had plenty of energy and sort of capacity to take on the river and make the most of it. So that's what we did. Yeah. So last year, the run up to it, there was a lot of flow. It was pretty favourable conditions last year, and in the briefing, Owen was giving us the news saying, you've got to watch out. And when Keith and I got to Reading, we turned right onto the river, and we frankly were a bit disappointed. We thought, is this what we've got? We were expecting a bit more. Complete opposite this year. We made that right turn, and I was like, wow, this is quite special. And in fact, it's what I thought we would get last year. And worth saying here that the flow being high does present its own challenges. There were swirls, there were sort of extra chutes coming off fields into the canal. We had to concentrate, and we were cautious. We put paddles down a few times just to make sure we didn't take any risks. We weren't going to slow down by doing that.
Yeah.
We just wanted to make sure we had a clean run. But it was fast, and we knew it was fast early on, and it was going to then become more a race of who can survive those conditions better than perhaps who's fittest or fastest. So that played to our strengths really, because we've been paddling on this river all winter in conditions just as bad as, I'd say bad, they were good, just as strong and fast flowing as we had for the race. So that played to us really well, actually.
Yeah, I think we massively benefited from having those kind of 3 months on some really fast water. We obviously are at the same club. We had about 4 sessions a week together on the Thames in fast flow in the dark. And when we got to Reading, we knew what we were doing. It was what we'd done that 4 times a week. We could kind of completely trust each other, didn't have to kind of tense up our core or get worried or lose any nervous energy towards it, which I think is a really big positive, and would recommend to everyone that you get on the Thames as much as possible in the dark with your partner.
You all are speeding along in the dark, catching up on time.
So Marlow was where we found out that the race was going to stop at Teddington. It was also where we found out that other crews were having challenges. So I think Lizzie told us that Andy and Tom had pulled out when we got to Marlow. So like a whole bag full of emotions just presented to us as we got back in and paddled away. And we knew that the race stopping at Teddington was a risk before we set off, but we didn't have really any time at all to process that information beforehand. And then when we got the answer, inevitably it sort of made us drop a little bit. But we knew by that point that we were still in a race and we were going really well. We were leading, and it was still a long way. It was going to become a different version of the race, not the one we wanted or hoped for, but it was still a version of the race that was worth pushing on for. So we just readjusted, took a few kilometers or so to get over the disappointment, and just carried on as we were planning, basically.
What were some of the things that didn't go so well during the race?
I think largely we are pretty happy with how it all went. So it's sort of picking on a few little things, but definitely the first 2 hours weren't my favourite. We did have a bit of a lean. It's something that we've been battling with for about 8 weeks. So we kind of knew how to deal with it, but obviously thought it might be quite a long night if it stuck around. Thankfully, after a couple of hours, it sort of disappeared at the click of a finger, so that was a very welcome feeling. There was also obviously quite a few weeds at the start and things like that, but we knew that and a headwind, and we knew that every crew would be battling with that too, so could take some comfort in that. When we got to the kind of fast flowing bits of the canal, it was obviously higher than we've ever paddled it, although we have done lots of training on it, and with it being dark as well, I think we're a bit cautious around the bridges. I'm not sure what the kind of key learning would be there, maybe to like have someone go ahead on a bike and really try and kind of judge that for you. We did have one where we paddled up to it and sort of chickened out and spent a couple minutes paddling back, but in the grand scheme of things, I think sort of everyone has a couple of those challenges, and what was really nice was kind of how we didn't get kind of stressed or frustrated at each other, often laughed and sort of cracked on with it, so that was really positive.
That's great. And then on the positive side as well, I know you all worked with each other beforehand about what would make a good partnership and a good race.
Yeah, I think something for me was I was always kind of very open with Tom about how I might be feeling, and also what I needed from him. One of the funny things that I felt I really wanted was kind of lots of positive reinforcement. It probably helped that our race was going well, so that maybe became a bit easier to Tom, but he definitely had like lots of, the speed we're going at is phenomenal, we're onto a winner, and it felt really nice for me.
It's always easy to have that positive attitude when things are going well. For me, the key really is trying to just maintain sort of, you don't want too many highs, too many lows, because if you start having a roller coaster like that, then you're burning up too much nervous energy, and it just ruins your race. So we were able just to focus on what we were doing, no major dramas, and just got on with it.
Great. And what is next?
Well, I told Nushi we've got unfinished business. Yeah, it's a terrible shame we couldn't carry on. We would have got the mixed record. We would have done a blisteringly fast time overall. And it's a shame. Nushi, it was a record deserving paddle. So I kind of feel that we're going to have another go at that. Whether we can achieve a record, who knows? But we've got to finish off what we started, really, which we haven't quite done yet.
We've definitely been back in the K2 since DW, so there are no secrets there. We'll see what happens and when it happens, but it would be nice to have another crack.
Unfinished business. It sounds like Tom and Nushi will definitely be back for more and try to get that mixed K2 record all the way to Westminster and maybe even the overall record. I cannot wait to see what these two do next.